So you've founded a couple of businesses, you've interacted with many business owners in the span of your career. And I'm curious, in your own experience as well as the conversations you've had with other businesses, what have you found to be the underlying cause of doing loans the wrong way, if I can call it that? Is it ignorance? Is it what have you found really? What is the thing behind the thing?
Thank you very much, Fiona. The thing behind the thing, I realized that I think I must have read it from Mark Cuban. He's a billionaire in the US. And he was explaining why startups fail when they borrow. And he says, when a startup borrows money, they have already lost. And it did make sense to me. But he explained that a loan deals with certainty, yet a startup deals with probability. And this is the explanation. When you have just started up a business, it's like a baby. And what do babies do? They spoil things. They'll spoil the bed. My daughter, when she accessed my phone, sometimes she just put it in the mouth and all the saliva went into the charging port and it couldn't charge. So babies spoil things. Now, even a business when started, it's a baby. It will spoil money. Now, notice that when you go to a bank like Absa, by the time you get out of the bank, you have an amortization schedule, which means they're dealing with certainty. On every 30th, you'll be paying. Every 30th, you'll be paying. It's certain. Now, the business you've just started, you do not know whether you actually have the right employees. You do not know whether you have the right product, the right location, the right customers, the right suppliers. So everything with a startup is on probability. Yet, when you got the money, it was on a certainty that you'll be paying this amount, this is the interest and all that. So the merger of uncertainty with probability is the chaos. So there is a struggle. But also what I realized is the borrower is always not borrowing from a point of rationality. The borrower is on emotional intelligence. When the emotional intelligence is low, if you read about the psychology of human beings, they created us with the natural instinct of survival, which takes the priority. If, for example, they told us that there is a snake somewhere, none of these people will think about the expensive iPad or the expensive phone. Survival first, and we all look for the exit. Now, when we are thinking about loans, our overweight is in the now. We can't see the future. So our overweight is in the now. So we come for that money. Let me finish fees. Let me pay the landlord. Let me buy off this car. Let me do this. My spouse wants a wedding today. So we want to finish the now and we do not think about. That's why the struggle now comes later and then we struggle with it. So I intend to always tell people that the writing which is in Luke chapter 14 verse 28, when Jesus is saying, who amongst you wants to build a tower and you don't start by knowing the cost? He goes ahead and he says, which king would want to attack the other kings without knowing what the other king has prepared? And I said that when you go to a bank to borrow money, Absa Bank or any other bank has already organized itself. It has brought a lawyer to write an agreement called legalese. In law, we call them standard agreements. You can never have the bank change that agreement. They tell you, just sign there. And very many people, when they're borrowing, they even never go with a pen. They even tell the person in the bank, help me with your pen. I'm signing our. Then they start putting the signature. Now, the bank has a lawyer. The bank has a valuer. The bank has an insurance company. The bank has a financial advisor. The bank has a loans officer. The bank also has a bailiff.
A full team.
A full team. I say when you walk as an individual and you go to the bank without any help, without you organizing also your team, you've gone for a gunfight with a knife. So the idea is the information and the preparation. Thank you.
Thank you for painting that picture. I think, yeah. That was definitely worth some applause. Thank you for painting that picture so vividly, because it's not something we can always see. Like you said, the emotions sometimes are the ones taking you. You're like, now how do I pay everyone? How do I make this work? So actually that leads me right into my next question to Moses. We've talked about the bank. So there's a lot of emphasis now on how fast you can get money, how fast you can get a loan, how easy, how accessible, all of these things. Like, this is something we're almost bombarded with daily. Anywhere you look, turn on the radio, switch on the TV, you can get money. Leave your logbook, do this, you can get money at probably just a snap of your fingers. Now, from the banking perspective, what should come first, structure or speed, and why?
That's a good question. What should come first, structure or speed? For many of us to understand that actually, first of all, time is money. So anytime you have a decision to make, the decision needs financing. If it takes long, there's a cost around it. If you have goods coming in across the border to finance to pay for taxes, if you keep them for a week, that's additional cost. If you have a child going to school and you're unable to pay for school fees, you have to go the first time to beg to be allowed in, next time to go back to pay the difference. The back and forth alongside is time. But additionally, also, we believe there's an emotional cost around time. That when you're not sure right now, today is the 29th, and you're not sure where school fees will come from, next week is going to be a difficult week. All of us can agree for our parents. You will not sleep, you wake up in the morning, thinking around the night, then your wife will ask you what's wrong.
It's the 69th of January. The 69th day of January.
So January, the WR is taking a toll. So I believe time and structure are two things that go hand in hand. And I do believe that, first of all, by empowering you to make the right choice is very important. That's why in this campaign, we're not saying just come and borrow, but borrow with an informed point of view. So having that information is important. Two is borrowing for a need. And that need has time on it. School fees has time on it, and everything you do has time on it. So that's why we've built everything around a need, but most importantly within time. Some of the emphasis across the industry is about speed, because we've discovered that when you miss the timing of something, you create a bigger cost for the customer. And let me tell you, I think for an entrepreneur here, if you have a particular, for those who are, this is now January, making orders for back to school, if that order delays, the goods will come in when the children have gone back to school. Then you've lost money. So the element of time can never be taken away. But however, it's important to merge that with the right foundation of why you're borrowing. And that's why through this campaign, we'll not only come and say borrow, but borrow with an informed point of view. So having that structure, having the backing. And to the commentary around how the bank has structure, part of the campaign is to enable the customers be educated about the importance of some of these structures, being able to read the argument and understand it. And we're happy when customers come and say, let's have a conversation about this argument. What does this mean? What's the meaning of this covenant? When you explain, then you inform that when you've taken this loan, please ensure that every month your bankings are around these ranges to enable us to have the right assessment when you come back in 6 months for an additional loan. What we see experience, sometimes somebody borrows and then now changes and now begins banking elsewhere. When you come back in 6 months, I say, sorry, I can't give you a loan because you moved your banking. You didn't meet the covenant or the ranges within which I had assessed you on. So I believe the customer having access to what we have as a bank as well will be key in this campaign. We're going to offer that available to the customer to empower them and equip them. Thanks.
Okay, an empowered customer is surely, and even me as a customer, it is what I want to be. It's what I'm aspiring to do. So, because you talked about cost specifically, I felt like Newton had something to add. There is a way you were writing down. There's something you wanted to add?
What I wanted to add was what I heard from Moses speak earlier, which I would juxtapose with what Robert has said. He said that you borrow while smiling, but the recovery is when we are at loggerheads. We are all tough. And also, Robert has added that a quality customer who keeps coming back. Now, what that brought into me was initially, people used to lend and the other people would bring back the money. But it reached a time in the earlier days when the borrower could now have all the excuses. My chicks died, my cattle is sick, it overrained, the weather and all that. So because I wanted to know where the word mortgage came from, and I realized that mortgage is its etymology is from Latin to Old French. So the M-O-R-T is mort, which is French to die. And G-A-G-E is gage, which is French for a pledge. So mortgage is a death pledge. Now, banks introduced mortgage such that the borrowers could no longer give excuses. That's why it's when the bank takes on a capitalistic tendency, what Robert has suggested becomes so hard, because the banks, in law we say once a mortgage, always a mortgage. So you won't tell us the weather, you won't tell us anything. For us, we put a mortgage. Now, understanding the customer, like he has said, I think it is so paramount. And you will have to go back to John Forbes Nash, who actually got he got a Nobel Prize in economics for what they call the game theory. Having played very many games, and he realized that every game was about win, lose, win, lose. He said, there must be a game played when you win and I also win. And I want to promise you, when you do that for your customer, such that you are interested in their winning, and you will also automatically win. I had a license to be a money lender from 2006 to 2011. And the reason actually I had to leave the country was because everyone I had lent could not pay. Now, you realize that when you go into a win-win, a customer, that particular customer can be your client for over 50 years. When you're into a win-win, you start them when they are 10, they borrow 20, they come to 30. After 15 years, they are borrowing 500 million. They are growing with you. Now, it is less costly for a bank to have a customer they have run with for a long period, because this is a customer now they will know. They will actually know where he stays, where his things are. But when you have this relationship which keeps breaking, it means you keep on attracting new people whom you have to dig deeper now to understand. He said he's married, but is that the wife? Things like that. So I wanted to add that what he mentioned, that when we are lending, we are smiling. When we are picking the money from an individual, it's a tug of war. And actually, in Buganda, we have a saying, "Gwolo today, omubanjo imiridde." The literal sense is that when you're borrowing from me, Fifi, you need, I give it to you. But to ask you for the 100,000, I have to stand up, look for you, and all the cases. So the know your customer is so paramount, and the empathy, like I said, is so paramount. But it helps actually the bank, because it will run with this particular customer for ages, and they will be giving them money because the customer grows and also they grow.
Okay.
I just wanted to add that the flip side of KYC is, how do we teach our customers to understand the way banks work? You assume that because I've walked in through the front door and put money in your bank account and kept it there, I know how a bank works. Like for me, I have one rule, two rules. One, I will not bank or borrow from a bank in which I don't know either the MD personally or the head of department. No, that's not going to work. If I don't know the MD personally, in fact, how it started, because for a long time, all the banks in Uganda were run by foreigners. I only banked where the MD was a Ugandan, because at least I knew that Ugandan knows my village, understands our cultural things. But most importantly, I have one personal rule. Never let the phone call from your banker ring more than twice. Or if you missed a call from your banker, please call them back. Because your banker can mess you up. Why? It's so important that the method of communication creates an understanding between both of you. And in this case, because the bank is superior, I think the bank can help their customers understand how the bank operates internally. When does the kubanja, when standing, come in? When you don't peak, when you disappear. But there are people in the bank who are interested in helping you to get back on track when you go off track, and we all go off track. Believe it or not, there are doctors who smoke and drink alcohol, even though they know they shouldn't. So that's, I just wanted to make that point, that the flip side of KYC is the customer knowing their banker. So that is CYB. Customer, your bank or something.
Know your bank.
No,
Know your bank.
KYB. Okay, fine. Know your bank.
So we're developing new ones.
So we have KYB and the KYC.
If I can just one thing, one final comment from me. I think that's a very good point, especially around the win-win. And you will discover that we've been here for more than 90 years, almost 90 years. And through these 90 years, we have families that have banked with us in the 70s and 60s, whose children are banking with us, whose parents borrowed from us in the 60s, and then that generational banking then grew. It was because there was an understanding between the bank and the customer that was progressive. Even when mistakes happen, because as Robert has said, all of us would make mistakes. But that communication is very important. And the second thing, that's why part of this campaign, we've been very clear that it must be a win-win for both. Because there's no benefit. As a bank, we want relationships. So anything which puts that relationship at risk becomes important for us. And we believe that borrowing responsibly, and borrowing with information, borrowing when empowered, understanding KYB is important. Then it helps you on your journey, and you can have a good night, even when you have your own in the bank. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Just something
Go
small.
ahead.
And I'm picking it from what Robert said, to educate the customer on how the bank works. I don't think there is any bank that has ever labored to tell the customer that actually when you do not pay, it has an effect on our license. Have you noticed that when you are in a family setting and they know you're the relative or brother or sister with the money, when they are trying to gather or collect money for a family, and let's say it has to be 10 million, and they realize you have that money, they will all contribute very little money and wait on you, such that you complete the thing. Now, the people who borrow from banks actually see banks from a lens of overzealousness. Who are these people? They already have money, but then they want also to take my house. Let's call Agatari Konfufu. Yet the bank, if it taught the customer that actually we have the money, but it is not our money. Because in banking law, what we study is when I open an account and I deposit money on the bank, I've lent the bank. So the bank has to give me that money on demand when I go to the ATM. So the bank has to inform the customer that actually the money we are giving you, it's someone else's money. If you do not pay, how would you feel if you were our customer and you went to the ATM, plugged in the ATM, typed in the digits, and they tell you, sorry, today there is no money? Or what is the effect of the bank not meeting its capital requirements, which are required, such that they maintain the license? The more you explain those things, the empathy now is running on both ways. So they try to understand you, and they do not see you as a person who just wants their house, their land, or their things. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Information.
I'm a big fan of I always forget, let's fit my mind. I think the richest man in Babylon.
Carlson.
James Carlson, yes. I think
George Carlson.
George Carlson's book, I believe, gives a very good perspective on what you determine. The real part is there are different. I'll give three approaches. We've talked about a need and a want everywhere we have. And we are all meant that needs are important. Wants you can do without. The same thing applies to borrowing. There are particular causes that require borrowing. There are causes that require building own capital. Robert talked about something here when you discover that when you have if you want to invest into assets, to generate that income through individual savings takes you a bit longer. But also, too, there's some element of financial discipline required to raise that capital required over the next 5-6 years. The other approach would be to have an obligation that then causes you to ensure that you then stay within confines. So the different approaches do differ depending on so many needs. So me, I would believe that the approach should always be on two things. Personally, if I want to borrow, I focus on what is going to come out of what I will put that money in. Because if I buy a car on a rainy day, it will help me a lot. If I buy a house, George Carlson says, make your house a profitable venture. What value are you generating from? If you're doing, in your other world, if you're running your good space to run your podcasts, then you're getting value out of your house. But also, too, you can have a peace of mind, sleep knowing that you can go home and have a good day. So buying to buy a house instead of taking 5 years to build, that can be something else. So you look at needs, and the needs do vary from individual to individual. Personally, I look at what am I what value am I going to generate from that? Two, what peace of mind will it give to the family and to those close to me? And however, I must know that no matter what I have borrowed, that's not personal money. It is somebody else's money. And therefore, you should never be, they always say in football, never be comfortable with a lone player. You know where it is coming from. It is important to always know that when you get...
We'll sort it out on Saturday.
It's important that when I am borrowing, I understand that there is a commitment I have made, first to myself. And one of the things I have built in my many years is to ensure that the banker should never call me as much as possible. Because by the way, I'm also a bank customer. So if I make a mistake, the bank will deal with it. But also, too, to ensure that I build the right credibility, because you find the benefit of this much later on. And I have discovered something key about relationships and banking. And Robert's point is very key, that it's not about just going to borrow, it's building a relationship with your banker. If you discover your salary is going to be late, a phone call, say, by the pre-salary will be late, is very important. So that relationship then builds. So I consider what is the need I want, what value will I benefit, what peace will it bring me, but most importantly, what do I create out of that to ensure that then I borrow for the right cause and for the right reasons. Thanks.
I sincerely hope someone was taking notes, because thank you. I'd like to hear that actually the same thing from each of you. You know, when you, Newton, are considering taking a loan, what personally do you consider as, what makes you come to the conclusion that this thing is worth borrowing for, the other thing is not?
Thank you very much, Fiona. Over time, I got to, I think I grew into learning how to borrow. It's because I grew up seeing my dad borrowing money for his hardware, and I learned how you could access money from the bank. But then later I realized why the wealthy borrow and how they borrow. And I picked lessons. When you read Proverbs 22:7, it says, a borrower is a slave to the lender. The rich rule over the poor, the borrower is a slave to the lender. But then I realized that the wealthy do it in a way that they have borrowed without borrowing, which is an oxymoron. How can you borrow without borrowing? And I think it's what Moses has alluded to. When you borrow money and it's going to help you grow, it means you have borrowed without borrowing. Let me give an example. Imagine buying a car to do Uber. So I go to the bank, I negotiate, they give me, let's say, 15 million. And they say that every month I will be paying, let's say, 700,000. I talk to the Uber guy, I talk to the whole entire Uber system, and I get to know that my Uber guy will give me, let's say, 250,000 per week or 200,000 per week. A month it's 1 million, or a month it's 800,000. So the moment the car I have bought can actually be the one to pay the bank, it means at the end of it all, the bank is happy, the Uber driver is happy, I also retain the car. So it means I borrowed without borrowing. It's called leverage. And to understand leverage, you will have to go back to primary school where we were studying levers. The example our teacher used to use was you trying to open a bottle of soda with your fingers, and you realize the bottle top won't go off. But when you get the opener and you plug it on the top of the bottle, you'll just use a little effort. So the opener is the lever, and you put in little effort, but it does all the effort. The bottle is off. So the lever would give you leverage. So I realized that word called leverage is what the wealthy use to borrow. And I can never borrow until what I'm doing showcases to me that I'm putting in little and it is doing all the work. So if someone brings you a property and you look at the property and the property is really nice, you must have to go around the property and ask in the whole entire neighborhood, how much is rent here? How much do we pay rent? Then you get a guy who is constructing. You go, you check the house, you check for its health. Will I need to be fixing the plumbing, the electricity, and all that? Will I need to do paintings? Give me an estimate of what I will have to do to put this house to a level that it will be giving me money. So little by little, and you start slowly, but you must be a great record keeper. You must ask your way to success by asking questions. When you go around, for example, I tell people who want to build rentals, the idea of building rentals is not about you having the land. Actually, the land should come last. The very first question is, how much do I want to charge my tenants? Because as a person who deals in real estate, I know the amount of money you would use to build in Chanja for a block of flats, it's the same amount of money you would use to build a block of flats in Chiwenda, which is Gayaza. But in Chanja, a 1 BHK is 1 million. Yet in Chiwenda, a 1 BHK is 450 or 400. So you must ask your way to success. There are people who are already in these things. You go and ask them, and they tell you. So before you buy the property, it's always going to be exciting that you have the property. But you ask yourself, am I having any leverage? I'm buying a border, but will it pay itself such that at the end of it all, I do not touch my salary? I realized that to be an employee and you access a salary loan, it is the only thing in the world where you would cheat the bank. Would you believe that if you were to get a salary loan, the company just gives a letter of undertaking that we shall pass his salary through you? But you go and try to borrow money when it's not a salary loan. You're taking pictures with your TV, taking pictures with your car, you're standing on top of the bed. That's how banks do it. You get the idea. They tell you, but is that your car? Okay, you stand on it. So you stand on the car, they take a picture. But when you're an employee, I was like, how can I be an employee and I do not take a salary loan? So when you're taking a salary loan, they will just say the salary will be passing through the bank. You don't need a CV, you don't need security, you do not need anything. Now, where is the problem? The problem comes from what you will do with the salary loan. It is very interesting to showcase that you have made it, and people get a salary loan and they get a car. it's a good choice. And it's actually their choice, and I cannot blame them. But you will have to go back to the Stanford University experiment, the marshmallow experiment, where they put kids in a room and gave them marshmallows. And the test was on early gratification. They told the kids, whomsoever does not eat the marshmallow for 10 minutes, they will get a second marshmallow. The psychologists who were doing the research went out and started looking at the kids. There are those who put the marshmallow in the mouth. No sooner had the guy just left. Now, there are those who waited 8 minutes, 7 minutes, and they said, you only live once. Ate the marshmallow. There are those who waited up to the 10 minutes and they ate the marshmallow. Others waited and they did not eat till the guy returned. Now, the research followed all these people. The kids were followed for a full 3 decades. And what they noticed was those who delayed the gratification, they were found to be people who completed school, stayed longer in marriages, did all their work better. So there is something in this, there is something in gratification. So it means when I get a salary loan, I can still harden to handle the barrage of oyajira kuboda, oyotaina motoka, you go through that for some time and you build assets, you build assets, you build assets. By the time they tell you that the job is over or the salary loan is done, you can even access more. But you build. By the time you leave the job, everyone who was laughing at you is now the one who is admiring you. So for me, I usually look at what the wealthy do. They borrow without borrowing, which is leverage, and I can never get the money until I'm comfortable that whatever I'm going to put in will pay for itself. Thank you very much.
What was the question again? You know, when you are 57, the memory.
If another 57-year-old was saying it, maybe, but you, Mr. Oh, but the question is...
Yeah, sorry.
The question is, how do you personally consider whether something is worth taking a loan for?
So, I am going to share what I do. And I suggest that if you're male, middle-aged and younger, please listen carefully. And I'm talking about, borrowing. I'm talking about what my friends call a soft. No, I'm talking about borrowing. Every single time in my loan-taking journey, I have gone to borrow money. There is only one person I go to tell that I plan to borrow money. My wife. She's a much better banking officer than most of my bankers. And she will ask questions from a purely common sense point of view and a stakeholder that makes me reevaluate whether I actually really need to do that borrowing. Guess what else she does? Because she's now a stakeholder, she asks that money which we got, you said we were going to do this. Where is the thing you said we were going to do? So she becomes your accountability partner. Then after a while, she'll ask, by the way, are we paying back? Now, guys, you don't like the pressure of the bailiff from the bank and the one sleeping next to you, both of them hit you. You can't. Even for me, who has done ultra marathons like Moses, climbed mountains, that pressure is too much. So, to save yourself in this borrowing business, I like Newton and all the things they said. That's up here. It's very technical. But at the emotional and psychological level, and by the way, every single time she has said don't, and I have disregarded her, she has turned out to be right. Thankfully, there are very few times. There are not many. So, there is no bigger... Because you see, if you say I'm going to borrow for fees, and you ask her, you say, I'm borrowing for fees, she knows the numbers. So if the figure is suddenly, you're paying for 5 people, but she knows she has 3, We are the two. Who are they? You know, so all of the things, the wrong things for which you borrow money, there is one person. I'm talking for the men. Women, I don't know. I'm talking for the men. You will thank me in 20 years. Please ask your wife and tell her exactly what the amount of money is and what it is for. You will be very surprised how much she will save you. And I'll finish this by saying, I have two friends. One is 65, the other one is 70. They're both late 60s to 70. Last year, both of them told me exactly the same thing, that one of the best decisions they've ever made in their lives was to transfer the ownership of the matrimonial home into the wife's names. And they said, by now, we would be on the streets because it would have been very easy to mortgage the house without the madame's involvement. And said, just doing that. Because every time she has said no to me, I go back and ask, but do I actually need this money? No. Then you find after with time, actually, you could have done without it. So, my answer to you, madam, is ask your wife.
Simple enough. It's simple enough. I didn't even have to write it down.
Can I add something to what you're saying?
Please.
I actually realize why it always works. It's because women were gifted, when in their creation they were given intuition, and men we were given logic. So for us, when as men are borrowing, we do the numbers and we are like, if I borrow 100, I'll get 120 if I borrow. But for her, it's what if we fail to pay? It's very
Newton. In addition to that,
yes,
she has the best KYC. she knows you as a customer better. Than
yes. She might even know that you're not actually going to use that money for what you want. So it actually helps a lot, because you imagine a gentleman who has a deal and they call him at midnight to pick the money. You're in Kampala, they call you at midnight to pick the money from Masaka. Mm-hmm. If you run that idea by your wife that they have called me to go pick money, I think I should go, give me that. She'll say, what? At midnight? No way. Because for her, she's thinking the future. She's thinking about kids. She's thinking about all this. She'll tell you, let them wait for tomorrow. And you'll be like, no, Then next day you hear the people who went were all short. And you're like, how possible? So that intuition, it helps. It actually helps men who get the advice from their women. To back it up, you will have to go and read about Napoleon. Napoleon loved Josephine, and before he would attack anywhere, he would ask Josephine, now I'm going to chase these people. If Josephine would say, you go, Napoleon would go to prove to Josephine. And he would wreck the whole of Europe. But the day Napoleon struggled with Josephine, he lacked now the intuition. He would just go to attack Moscow and find winter there and come back with a loss. Thank you very much.
Okay, there is a way in which we have gotten not only, the everyday information, the analysis, you've also gotten some solid advice for homes, about the wife you choose. And how you involve her in your financial decisions. So thank you, gentlemen. I thought we would close off with just one thing, one thing that you believe someone should ask themselves before they take a loan. Just one question. So let me start with you, Moses.
I always say choose the one thing before you take a loan is choose the right partner, because the right partner matters. First, the right partner at home, but also the right partner as a financial provider. I was very keen on that because the partner who has you at heart and cares about you is one who would watch over you and ensure that you can walk the journey with you. And I believe that as a bank, we are that right partner for anyone who is looking for the person to walk that journey with them, to remind them that on the journey they are going on, the do's and don'ts, the items to jump over, and sometimes to say no when they think you're going to make a wrong decision. the right partner matters most. So I believe personally, the right partner and Absa is the right partner. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Moses. So the partner, whether at home and also at the bank. All right. And Robert, I know you've already told us about the other right partner, but what is another question that you would, in fact, advise just a small business owner? What is a question they should ask themselves first before they take out a loan?
Again, I will speak for myself.
Please.
I only ask one question. What is it for?
Okay. And you, Newton, what's that question?
Over time, I went to learn something I read in the Holy Quran, Surat Al-Rad, Ayat 11. And it's saying Allah wouldn't change a soul until a soul has bothered to change itself. What I realized that people who borrow, you borrow today, you are borrowing all the time. But every time you borrow, there is a mistake you've made. So it is always better to only borrow with records and then look at the records to push you to the next loan. So if I borrow, I keep my records. If it's a business, I keep my sales. If it's construction, I keep the records. So I look through the records to inform how am I performing before I bring in the money. So how am I performing before I bring in the money? Then I also look at leverage, whether it will actually help me pay back. That's how I approach it.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been really amazing learning from you, gentlemen. Perhaps let's give them a round of applause. I have no doubt that there is something that has stood out for you in your personal capacity. As Robert kept saying, I'm talking for me. I know that different things are speaking to us very differently, even depending on the season of life you're in, whether you are a business owner or someone who, is salaried, whatever your version of this looks like, I'm sure that there's something that has stuck with you. I will say the conversation also had me thinking about how this entire loans, the giving of loans, the paying back of loans has much to do with oaths. So let me share with you something a quote that I hold actually quite close to my heart myself. It is from one of my favorite stories, A Man for All Seasons. And in that story, Thomas More is about to be executed, and he has the option to recant something that he said, and his daughter begs him to recant so that they can have him for a while longer. And he says, when a man takes an oath, he's holding his own self in his hands like water. And if he opens his fingers, then he needn't hope to find himself again.